In this video, we go over a really good alternative. In this video, we go over a really good alternative to the Rane 12 that you can pick up for less than half the price. Find out what that is coming up. Thank you for watching PDot TV, where you'll find tips, tricks, and tutorials for DJs and music performers. Now let's get into the video. So recently, I just picked up one of these. A Numark V7. Now, this controller actually came out quite a few years ago. If I remember correctly, it was a year after the original Numark NS7 came out, and they're already on the NS7 IV, so that kind of gives you an idea of how old this thing is. And big shout outs to my guy CO1 for posting a video and reminding me about this, because I totally forgot about this controller. And you know what? I'm glad he reminded me, because nowadays you can pick up one of these, a Numark V7, for about anywhere between $200 and $300. And this is a really solid controller. I remember playing with it back when it first came out, but I never owned one. And once CO1 posted that video, you know, I started looking around and I got this one for a pretty good price, right around the price that I was talking about. And I'm really happy I picked that up, because not only is this built on the same, you know, basic technology that the Rane 12 is based on. It might be a little bit older, it might not be as sharp, but this platter and this vinyl feel really emulates, you know, what a turntable really feels like. And people that have used an NS7 or V7, you know, can really attest to this. Really feels like vinyl when you're playing on it and when you're cutting on it and when you're mixing with it. It pretty much feels like a real turntable, just like the, you know, newer Rane 12 does. And from what I know, this is pretty much a really similar technology that the Rane 12 uses. Yeah, it's not as new, and I know they've tweaked it and kind of refined it, but for this price point, you really can't go wrong with this thing. So on top of just being, you know, a motorized plattered controller, this thing actually has a lot more controls than the Rane 12. So first and foremost, unlike the Rane 12, as you can see, the layout of this thing is based more like a CDJ than a turntable. Now that might turn some guys off because they, you know, they want the pitch fader up here like it would be in battle style for a turntable. But if you can get around that and just kind of get used to the CDJ layout, or if you're used to CDJs already and just want something with a motorized platter, this thing, you know, really works out. And I like the fact that it has one of those long throw pitch faders that you'd find on a CDJ. It's about as long as the pitch fader you'd find on a turntable, so it's pretty easy to get comfortable with. Or if you've used CDJs or controllers, you know, it's pretty easy to get used to this and the placement of it. It's just like any of those. Now, like I was mentioning, the extra functionality that this thing has, you know, in comparison to the Rane 12. So the Rane 12 does have cue points on it. They're, you know, up here, and you do get 8. This one, you only get 5 cue point pads, because this is based on the older Serato software itch, but it does work perfectly with Serato DJ. But on top of that, you get a bunch of really nice looping controls up here, as well as controls to go through all your different, you know, views in Serato and load your tracks, and even load into the prepare crate, which you don't see in a lot of controllers, which is really cool because I use the prepare a lot, as well as the ability to use this to control 2 decks, so you can actually switch between deck A and deck B, all from one controller, which is really cool in my opinion. And also the standout feature on this thing, which the Rane 12 doesn't have at all, is the fact that this thing actually has a Serato DJ sound card built into it. So you can go ahead and take this and just a regular mixer and play a gig with it. Unlike the Rane 12, where you'd need, you know, a Serato box, or you'd need a Serato enabled mixer like this 72 down here. Just taking this in a regular mixer to a gig and you're good to go, which is crazy. That's one thing I totally forgot about, is that not only does this have a Serato DJ interface, but it has 2 outputs. So you don't need 2 of these to play a gig, you just need 1, which is crazy. In a lot of ways, this V7 was ahead of its time, and I'm glad that you can pick these up for cheap now, because this is an awesome piece of hardware. So let's take a look at the back of this thing, because it has some pretty interesting stuff besides the outputs that you see right here. So just like the Rane 12, it does have a USB you know, output that goes into your computer. But one thing that this has, another thing that this has that the Rane 12 doesn't have is, see this right here, this is an Ethernet port. So to link two of these together, you don't need two USBs to link into your computer, you just need one. And then these two link over this Ethernet cable, much like CDJs would. And that's another thing that I really wish the Rane 12 had, because, you know, a lot of DJs out there are MacBook users, and we all know MacBooks only have two USB ports. So one's got to go to the sound card for either your mixer or your Serato box, and for something like this or a Rane 12, the other one has to go to, you know, the other controller. And in the case of a Rane 12, if you don't have a mixer like the 72 that has a hub built in, you're gonna need to bring a USB hub, and you know, sometimes those go bad. You know, sometimes you need to use a powered one depending on the kind of USB hub you use. When this problem could be solved just by using, you know, a link port just like this. And it kind of makes me wonder, like, inMusic had this technology already, why not just add it into the Rane 12? Now I will say this thing isn't kind of without its faults, and it's, you know, not as good as the Rane 12 in some departments. First and foremost, the easiest thing to, you know, distinguish between a Rane 12 and this is that the size of the platter. Now this is a 7-inch platter, much like playing on a 45 or scratching on a 45. And you know, some DJs, most DJs like a bigger platter, that full 12-inch to get a little bit more control. It's a little bit easier to maneuver. There's more room for your hands to, you know, kind of beat match and kind of get things into place. But with the rise of portablism in the last few years, a lot of DJs are a bit more comfortable playing on a 7-inch record. Even DJs out there that are playing with 7-inch Serato vinyl on regular turntables, just because, you know, they want to conserve space in their bag, you know, they're kind of getting used to playing on a smaller surface than a regular 12-inch. So in my opinion, you know, the size of these is, you know, mattering less and less as time progresses, where we're seeing smaller platters than a 12-inch platter. And this is going to be more for the traditionalists out there that want that full turntable feel. But in my opinion, this is a pretty good solution. It's not the best. I would prefer a 12-inch platter, but you know, this makes do. And especially again at this price point, for anywhere from $200 to $300 to get a fully motorized platter that works really well is a great solution. Now, one other thing that I really don't like about this controller is the fact that it has this weird 45 adapter plate thing right here in the middle. Now, they got rid of this with the Rane 12, and I'm glad they did, because this kind of gets in the way. I don't know if you can see, but it actually is raised a little bit right here on these edges, and I just don't understand. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I'd rather have this as flat as possible to give you as much space to you know, to beat match and kind of get this pitch bend into the right place. But besides that, you know, I'm pretty happy with the platter overall. The torque on this is really good. You actually have two torque settings. So you have your low, which is more like your traditional 1200, and you have your higher torque, which is more like, I guess, in this case, like the Numark turntables that have the higher torque, or any of the handpin design turntables that have the same motor. It feels really good, really responsive, really quick pickup. As long as I played on this, I've never had any issues with it not picking up as quickly. But again, this thing kind of gets in the way, and I just wish there was some way to, you know, not have this here. Now, my second gripe with this is, you know, no fault of this because this came out so long ago, is the fact that this only has 5 cue point pads on it. Now, you know, they're pretty cool. They're the clicky soft buttons that you see on a lot of controllers out there, and they're pretty responsive. But the fact that there's only 5, just because Serato Itch only had 5 cue points like Scratch Live, I really wish that this had 8, because I actually utilize a lot more cue points than just 5. You know, I've started using more of them, especially having controllers like this or mixers like this, where you have the pads where I can, you know, do extra cue points for setting up drumming or different routines and stuff. It really comes in handy to have access to all of your cue points, and especially since there's no way to access those with keyboard shortcuts in Serato DJ Pro, kind of shortchanging you and kind of shorthanding you unless you have a secondary controller, if you decide to use a Numark V7. And the last thing that might turn off some DJs that I mentioned earlier is the fact that this thing has a CDJ type layout, where the pitch fader isn't up here and the start stop button isn't right here in the corner. So if you're more of a turntablist and, you know, you wanted the 12s to kind of do turntable tricks where you're doing a lot of start stops and you need that start stop button, you know, close on this side, this might not be for you. But if you're just a DJ that, you know, usually just has the table playing the whole time when you're using Serato, and you just need a platter going, this might be the controller for you, especially if you're looking to save a little bit of money. I like this pitch fader. I love the fact that, you know, it's really like the CDJ layout because I'm so used to that, using it a lot in the clubs now. You know, master tempo and range are at the same place they would be on the Pioneer CDJ. So switching this to +16, which is what I usually play out when I'm using a CDJ, is real quick and real easy to find. My hand just kind of travels there because it knows where it is. And it's a pretty good pitch fader as well, like dialing it in and getting really tight BPMs it's pretty easy on this thing, and they stay, of course, because it is digital, and when you use this, you're gonna be in internal mode just like you would be on the Rane 12 as well. So if you can get over the fact that this has a CDJ style layout instead of the turntable layout, if you can get over the fact that this is a 7-inch platter rather than a 12-inch platter, and if you can get over the fact that this only has 5 cue point, you know, buttons on it instead of 8 like you have in Serato DJ, I think those things are really outweighed by the fact that this thing is less than half the price of a Rane 12. This thing only needs one USB port to connect to your computer if you want to connect to, rather than 2 USB ports like the Rane 12. And the fact that this thing has a freaking Serato DJ USB sound card in it, so you can, you know, connect this up with just a basic mixer and start playing, and you don't have to worry about bringing a Serato box or bringing a more expensive mixer out. Those features are just awesome and definitely outweigh, in my opinion, those negatives, you know, that you might see other DJs have with this unit. So now let's take a deeper dive. I'm gonna switch the camera angle and take you through this and show you the responsiveness of this thing and show you some of the features. Okay, so now I have this Numark V7 plugged in, and it's hooked up to my 72, so I'm not using the sound card in this example. But I just wanted to give you, you know, a look at some of the features that this actual controller has. So first and foremost, let's take a look at the responsiveness of the platter. So find cue buttons are pretty responsive. Let's see how the platter feels. Like, to me, that control is really tight. And just like on a CDJ, you can actually adjust the start-stop time. So let me make this a little bit more 1200 like. Oh, slower break. So if you want that more of that classic 1200 wind, like power down, you can do that with this, which is awesome. You know, I'm not sure if the Rane 12 can do that. I'd have to look again, but I know for sure the controls for that aren't on the face of that controller. Another cool thing is that this thing has looping on it. So let me load up a beat and then we can take a look at those looping functions. So you actually have 2 ways to loop. You can do it in manual mode with in, out, you know, and re-loop like you would do on a CDJ, or you can switch it to auto, have a 1, 2, 4, 8 beat loop. So there's a 1 beat loop, and then these light up, and then you can half it or double it. So what's cool is there's loop shift functions as well. So I can move this loop along, then turn the loop on and off. Really easy. Besides those, you have controls right here to go through your different actual functions in Serato DJ. So right here you have a browse knob like you would see on any other controller. And then you can go ahead and load to deck A, load to deck B, or load into prepare, which I really like the fact that this has a dedicated load to prepare button because I use that all the time. Then you can go through and see your different panels. So, you know, your prepare crate, your files crate, your prepare panel, files panel, etc. And then also you can fast forward and rewind using these as well, since you don't have those buttons down here like you would on the CDJ. Now, one thing that I just tested out right now is that this has effects control on it right here. Itch had some, really basic effects. So although this is built around the whole, Serato Itch style of effects, you do get control of your effects in Serato DJ. So for instance, I have, I believe I have my break echo on, so I can go ahead and turn that on. And let me switch that to fade, so let's play. I can turn this on right here. And that's really cool, especially if you like I'm thinking about using this with just like a really basic mixer as a controller solution with a motorized platter. This allows you to have access to your effects without having to go on your keyboard and actually click on it on the computer, or having another controller connected to just have control for your effects. You can actually access them through here, turn them on and off, have your wet dry as well as the first parameter knob on the actual effects in Serato DJ. Also with the ability to select your effects with this and pick which one, scroll through them, and then just tap down on this encoder to go ahead and select it. Really easy. And just overall, really cool features on this thing. I'm really happy with it. I love the size of it. I actually kind of like the fact that it's not the size of a turntable in my case, because taking this out for mobile kind of gigs, or gigs where I don't want to bring out the turntables and maybe I want something that gives me a little bit more control than just a controller, this is a perfect solution for that. So like I mentioned before, if you're in the market for a Rane 12 or thinking about getting a Rane 12, but I don't know, maybe you don't want to spend that cash for 2 Rane 12s, or maybe you just don't have the cash and you're thinking about saving up, you might want to look into getting one of these, or 2 of these in fact, because you can get 2 of these for the price, less than the price of 1 Rane 12, which is crazy in my opinion. I mean, this thing is packed with a ton of awesome features. And also what's great is that you can find these everywhere, be it on Craigslist, eBay, Facebook Marketplace, OfferUp on the app on your phone. There's a ton of these out there. There seems to be like a bunch of people letting these go. And if you're a Serato DJ Pro user, this might be the controller for you if you've been thinking about trying to get something with a motorized platter. So that's a look at the Numark V7 and why I think it's a really good budget option if you're thinking about purchasing a Rane 12. So question of the day, do you think we're going to see more moving platter controllers or players? Go and leave that down in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And as always, if you found this video useful, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, go ahead and click right here to subscribe to this channel. Or if you'd like to watch more content, go ahead and click on that video right there. And thank you for watching PDot TV, where you'll find tips, tricks, and tutorials for DJs and music performers. See you next time.